evening, everyone. We are back in open session after having been in executive session. Thank you. So we just go to the approval of the agenda, right?
You can go straight to the approval.
We had a really long executive session tonight. My apologies for that. So do we have, it's recommended that the board approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Did you say that?
I did, I'm sorry. Yeah, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion, are there any changes from what was published?
Yes, there were a couple changes. We added Catherine Clayton's PowerPoint for the school safety presentation. Leslie Hardy's effective date changed to March 11th. And then we added the TEA TCS contract proposals. Those were the amendments.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, let's call the vote.
Mr. Bothus?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Everyone would rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our reports, Butler Tech, Career Tech and Career Development School Liaison, Mr. Mead.
Short, we were in executive session so long. I just got back from Washington, D.C. yesterday. We were out there with some Butler Tech board members and administrators lobbying for Perkins funding and other career tech issues. One of the things that people have been concerned about the past couple of years at Butler Tech is for accepting students. We've gone to a lottery system instead of an interview system. Turn away many students. We turned away about 1,100 while we were there asking for money. And instead of interviews, it's now a lottery system to get in. And we had asked the administration to show us some results of that. And what we found is there was a slight increase in number of students of color from 30% to 35%, a slight increase in students with special needs, but a somewhat significant increase in students on free and reduced lunch. That went from 25% of our students to 42%. Now, the important thing there is outcomes, and we wondered retention rates have stayed exactly the same. Achieving your technical skill certifications has gone from 76% to 82%. So we actually have seen an increase in student achievement in the areas we measure in career tech. And our students previously had gotten about 900 industry credentials in a year. In this group that was the first one in the lottery got over 1,000. So even though the population's changed a little, the outcomes have actually improved a little, which sort of makes us feel comfortable with the idea of the lottery. I know that makes some students and parents uncomfortable because my student's chance is equal to everyone else's, and they don't get to look at my resume and interview me. But the outcomes have been good for the students. The other thing, board members got your 2 student success things from Butler Tech since Butler Tech has had 2 meetings since our last one here at Talawanda. And for board members, you have on your, at your seat there, an invitation to the all board meeting. Butler Tech once a year invites you all down. It goes from 4 to 6 or later. One of the things you get to see when you come down, and I think this would be open to the public as well, is what we call student showcases, where you can go through the labs and see different students doing their metronomics or their welding or other things like that, as well as you get to enjoy a fine meal prepared by our culinary students, and you have that invitation here. That's it for my Butler Tech report.
Thank you. Legislative liaison report, Mr. Bothus.
Sure. There's a couple things going on in Columbus right now. Their House Bill 408, it's an anti-lunch shaming bill. It's introduced in the Ohio House. And it is a bill that eliminates lunch shaming policies by prohibiting the following practices: by requiring a student to discard a meal because of the inability to pay, which is actually occurring in some schools; by requiring a student to do chores for the meal, which again, sadly, in some schools is occurring; and public identification of the student, and denying a meal to a student in any form as a disciplinary action. The bill also requires school districts to send student meal debt information home to parents and not be given to the student. So that's promising. 407, House Bill 407, is an increase in fiscal and academic accountability of private schools who accept vouchers. There is a big movement in Ohio for vouchers, and this holds schools who accept them to a level of accountability similar to public schools, especially with the Ed Choice vouchers. It levels the playing field. It requires increased financial reporting, requires schools to have a policy for how they make admission decisions, requires most voucher students to take the same state tests as public school students, require the Department of Education and Workforce to issue a similar report card for private schools that have 25% or more of its students on vouchers. House Bill 411 is a bill to help recruit and retain high-quality teachers by raising the state minimum starting teacher salary to $50,000. Experienced teachers also benefit under HB 411, which increases all steps minimums. Local associations would still, at that point, retain the ability to bargain with their own salary schedules above state minimums. SB 17 adds capitalism to high school financial literacy. It was signed by the governor on March 13th, 2024, and it will come into effect June 12th of this summer. That requires the academic concepts of free market capitalism to be incorporated into the state standards and model curriculum for financial literacy and entrepreneurship for grades 9 through 12. It permits students to fulfill the financial literacy instruction requirement for high school graduates by successfully completing AP microeconomics or AP macroeconomics. It permits math teachers to teach financial literacy without a financial literacy license. And for me, I'm sorry, there's one more. SB 219, it changes the way educator licenses are specified for grade bands, pre-kindergarten through 8 or 5, grades 6 through 9, or grades 7 through 12. This bill would also make changes to the requirements for obtaining an educator license. For instance, the bill would require that applicants for a professional educator license have a master's degree from an institution or of higher education accredited by a regional accrediting organization. Educator licenses would be specified for grade bands pre-K through 8 or 5, grades 6 through 9, or grades 7 through 12. Applicants for a professional educator license would be required to have a master's degree, and this is sponsored by Senator Ingram. So that is what I have.
Thank you. Student Achievement Academic Liaison Report, Mrs. King.
Yes, so for Kramer, this past month, our kindergarten students made 100-day projects to display down the kindergarten hallways. The 4th grade students learned about the Iditarod in Alaska and followed the race. Thanks to the generosity of the Oxford Lane Library, the 5th grade students had author Stuart Gibbs visit Kramer. He gave a presentation to students and answered their questions. In February, there was a 2nd grade concert, and there was a 3rd grade concert last week, and all of the kids did great. At Marshall, 5th grade got to enjoy Stuart Gibbs visiting them as well. 4th grade experienced Dairy Day with Emily Mullen. 1st grade put on an amazing concert. High school students and staff brought Science Day to our 2nd grade and taught them about human circulation, roller coasters, and the eclipse. Let's see, for Bogan, we're currently celebrating Fine Arts Spirits Week at Bogan with the art show happening Wednesday night and our 5th grade musical happening Thursday evening. Author Gibbs visited 5th grade there as well. Mrs. Parrish's 2nd grade class had 2 opportunities to participate in Scholastic's Story Voice Read Aloud, which was broadcasted nationally and internationally. Last Friday, the Mobile Ed Planetarium was at Bogan for students K through 5. Also last Friday, Luna Morris participated in NASA's Power to Explore Challenge and was involved in a Zoom call with panelists for NASA and around the country. At middle school, I was given some data. This is about our 7th and 8th grade students on IEPs. It's a comparison between last year and this year. And so far this year, there was a performance increase for ELA of 6.55% for those students, an increase for science of 2.64%, an increase for social studies of 1.35%, and an increase in math of 5.55%. In the 2022-23 school year, there were 7 overall failures, and in this school year, there are 3. So that is down. At THS, Emma Puckett won the Southwest Ohio Rotary 4-Way Test Speech Contest on March 10th at Wright State. She memorized a 4 to 6 minute speech applying service leadership to the 4 tenets of the Rotary 4-Way Test. Emma received $400 and will deliver her speech at the district conference in April. THS celebrated World Teen Wellbeing Day on March 1st. Soph Grace Richardson secured a grant from the Joe Burrow Foundation, Interact for Health, and Big Cincinnati for the event. The Robotics Club Talawanda Tubers competed Saturday, February 3rd at Millette Hall. They won 3 out of 5 matches and placed 14th of 27 teams. Catherine Mull and Pierce Noldemeyer participated in Miami University's College of Engineering and Computing Dive into Chemical Engineering event. They worked on Chem-E Cube Challenge and purified water to make it potable. Sophomores Rachel Wasborn, Moses, and Ty Davey participated in the West Point of Greater Cincinnati Ethics and Leadership Seminar on Friday, February 2nd. The FFA made this amazing pamphlet. If anyone would like it, please email me. I will share it with you. I'm only going to give a few highlights, but they've done some amazing things in February and March. Big congratulations to Ms. Kendall. Our very own Ms. Kendall was honored as a Golden Owl Top 10 honoree at THS. The award recognizes agricultural educators across Ohio for their tremendous contributions to helping the next generation of agricultural leaders. Our 2024 Ag Comms team placed 4th in Ohio FFA on February 17th. Emma Puckett competed in the state public speaking contest in Marysville, Ohio, and her speech titled Golden Rice Bleak Future shed light on the importance of education and communication surrounding GMOs. She won the state advanced prepared contest. She will represent the state of Ohio in the fall National FFA Convention. Our Ag Sales CDE team placed 2nd in Ohio FFA. Abby Garland was 2nd individual. Emma Puckett was 4th individual. Grace Richardson, a sophomore of our Ag Education program, chose mental health wellness as a special project this year to promote mental well-being, reduce the stigma, educate on resources to build and support networking communities. In February, she wrote a grant through the Joe Burrow Foundation, Interact for Health, and buy 3, I guess that's buy 3, not big 3, for $500 to promote the National Teen Mental Wellness Day at THS and TMS on March 1st. With these funds, Grace was able to provide a silicone bracelet for every student and staff member in both our middle school and high school that includes special messages to never give up. On March 19th was National Agricultural Day. The FFA members went to Woodland Country Manor. They brought 2 pigs from Jericho Run Farms and were able to allow all of the residents to play with those pigs, and the pigs' names were Penelope and Brutus. I thought that was pretty cute. And that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw a photo that Woodland Country Manor put on their Facebook page of residents petting the pig. It was awesome. Thank you. Okay, arts and we have a finance committee. Do you have a report?
No report tonight.
No report, okay. Arts and athletics. I'm not going to talk about athletics because Mr. Richardson is here to do that, to do the wrap-up. There's been a lot going on in this last month. Shout out to the theater department for their presentation last weekend of A Year with Frog and Toad. Unfortunately, I was not able to go to that this year, but I've heard wonderful things about it. Thank you, Melanie Mortimer and her staff, and thank you to all the kids and their families for supporting that and doing such an amazing job. We've also had just multiple performances, vocal, instrumental, at all the schools, wrapping up all the concerts. As you mentioned, the one at Bogan, and I think there's another one at Bogan tonight, right? The 5th grade music is tonight, so. Also, I want to give a shout out to Bogan. They had their art show last night, and an amazing talent and turnout for that. Thanks to Ms. Klein for such an outstanding event. Bogan has a really dynamic art page link on their website that you can go to from the Talawanda page. Marshall also has a really active Artsonia link to see some of the things that the kids at Marshall are doing, and thank you, Ms. French, for keeping that active. And some very exciting news here. The THS Chamber Singers are thrilled to be performing at Music Hall in downtown Cincinnati at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 3rd. We have been invited to share this historic stage with the chamber singers from Miami University. The event will also feature collaborative works between Miami choirs and groups from Mason High School and Lakota East High School, including a grand finale involving all 6 choirs. There is this email that went out has a link provided to get tickets, and if you enter the code, I hope I'm allowed to say this, BFF at checkout, you'll get a discount. This is Miami Sings Music Hall. This is a tremendous opportunity for our students. Thank you, Mr. Pearson, for the work that you do with these students and getting this arranged. That is all I have. All right. So we're going to move on to resolutions and presentations. So I'd like to bring down Holly Hansel and Betsy Hope.
There we go. Thank you. I'm going to introduce Betsy Hope. She's the executive director for the Oxford Community Foundation, and she is going to share the annual presentation of the Techman Educator Award.
Oh, what did I just do? Make it go shorter. Okay, can everyone hear me? I am happy to be here to present the Harry and Virginia Techman Excellence in Education Award from the Greater Oxford Community Foundation. And our winner this year is Bethany Cool, who is a 3rd grade teacher at Kramer Elementary. Can you come forward? Mrs. Cole was nominated by a teacher who said that her son hated school until he had Mrs. Cole for a teacher. Her principal, Jason Mars, confirms that she is a beloved teacher who goes above and beyond to adapt to each child's learning style. And so for Mrs. Cole, we have $500 for her to use in her classroom in whichever way she would like to. She's excited.
Very excited.
And then this certificate, but I'll put it right here so you don't have to hold all these things at once.
I'm just beyond grateful and want to thank the community for just being supportive and loving, and especially the school district for all your support. And I'm just very honored, so thank you. Thank you for letting me work with such great teachers. And Administration. Thank you.
Congratulations, and thank you for the work that you do. Holly Hansel again, we have another presentation here.
I'm really excited to share about this tonight because it's a long time in the making. I first came in front of the Board of Education in late 2016 with Chris and Dave Winkler, and we presented the idea of the Talawanda Alumni Hall of Achievement. We just hosted our very first recognition event this past February, and so I guess everything comes in its own good timing. But COVID was a serious delay for our group. But we're very proud of the event that we just hosted, and I'm going to give you a little bit more information about that. I also wanted to introduce Tim Schiller. He is Talawanda High School class of 1984, and I asked if he would actually speak tonight, and he said, "Oh no, you can handle it." But he actually served as our MC at our event this past February, and he did an absolutely fabulous job. I don't have the clicker, Matt, so... Oh, I do have the clicker. I'm sorry. Okay, so the mission of the Talawanda Hall of Achievement was to develop an event that recognizes significant achievements of our Talawanda High School graduates outside of the area of athletics. We certainly love athletics, but this is just a great opportunity to recognize folks for other things. The categories that alumni can be nominated for are arts and entertainment, science, technology, engineering, and math, government, civic, or military service, education and literature, business and entrepreneurship, philanthropy, and also a Talawanda educator that changed my life. We did not have someone nominated in that category this year. The Planning and Advisory Board was put together all the way back in 2017, and those members are Chris Winkler, myself, Joe Wilhelm, Carolyn Winslow, Barb Cox, who is a retired Talawanda teacher, Tammy Tommy, Beth Killey, Linda Everett, and Tim Schiller. And the idea was to have someone from every decade that Talawanda High School has been in existence representing their decade on the board. Sadly, Beth Killey is moving away, and so she is stepping down from the board, but fortunately, Kim Ogle, who I know many of you know, will be replacing her immediately, actually. So I mentioned that we recently had our event this past month. We hosted that at Hanover Reserve. We sold all of our tickets. It was a fabulously supported and well-attended event, and I'd like to thank you guys for your support and also for the attendance that you came to the event. It was so awesome. All the way back before COVID started, we hosted a very successful trivia night fundraiser, and that provided some seed money to start planning and paying for some of the aspects that would take place at the event, and also some money for our scholarship fund. So this was actually our list of goals, and as you can see, we've completed all of them. We hosted a fundraiser which provided seed money and the start of our scholarship. We selected an event location. We started recruiting sponsors. We put our nomination form out there. We've got some fabulous nomination letters. It was very, very difficult for the group to make their selection. And then we started marketing for the event once we were able to secure a date. We believe that the benefits of having a group like this is that it's going to improve relationships with Talawanda School District and Talawanda High School alumni. It's going to improve communications with alumni, which is something that I think is a personal goal here in our school district. Also, we want to attract the support back to the school district, as well as our event and our scholarship program. And last but certainly not least, it's really important to recognize all of the fabulous achievements that come from graduates of Talawanda High School. And again, I just want to thank you for your support and the endorsement that you gave for us to move forward with this event. That was really important, and I think it gave the group a tremendous amount of credibility, and we appreciate you so much for that. Okay, so to the good stuff. This is our first class of inductees for 2024, and they are Tanya Toole from the class of 1958, Tim Derrickson from the class of 1978, Sean McLean from the class of 1985, Benjamin Bolser from the class of 1991, Gary Owen, also from the class of 1991, and Sridhar Papu for the class of 1993. I just wanted to share a little yearbook photo gallery, and it shows something from each of the inductees, just a candid from the yearbook, but also some information about the year that they graduated and what category that they were inducted into the Hall of Achievement. We also want to take a moment to thank all of the sponsors of our event and our scholarship program. First and foremost, Chris and Dave Winkler. This was their dream. They talked about this. They sat on the patio one night and then on Monday picked up the phone and called into the district. Ryerson Steele, Tammy Tommy and Missy Freedy, who are agents for Thacker and Associates Real Estate. Melanie Malicote Photography, Thrivent Financial for Lutherans, and Molly Buckley from the Animal Care Clinic. And this is just some photos from our event. Thank you to Melanie Malicote Photography, of just some of our sponsors and the inductees from that night. Thanks so much, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for everybody who put all the work into making this a reality. This is what an amazing inaugural class. I do have one question.
Sure.
So, like before you go into the Baseball Hall of Fame, you have to have been out of the game for a certain number of years. Do you have a certain number? So he's just gesturing over here, but he's kind of your silent partner.
Actually, there is a set of bylaws for this board. And I'd be happy to share them with you. I think I have them someplace on Google Doc. There is not an amount of time that you have to be graduated from high school to be able to be nominated. I will tell you that we received several letters of more recent graduates, and we kept those letters. We didn't feel that they were going to make that first selection group. However, they've done so many outstanding things in the short number of years that they've been out of high school. We'd like to wait and see what they do next. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. So, yeah, no timeline.
Well, that's excellent, because not everybody makes the cut the first time for the Baseball Hall of Fame either in Cooperstown.
Correct. Correct.
Any other questions? Or
It was a really amazing event. It was beautiful.
It was so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
very
for
much.
attending.
Thank you.
All right, our athletics update, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you. Always a privilege to have the opportunity to hit on some of the highlights of our athletic seasons. For the presentation to come up there, so I know what I'm talking about.
You know how it goes. It's only going 30 feet, but it takes 10 minutes to go 30 feet.
There it is.
There.
All right. We had another successful season this winter. 123 high school student athletes, 82 middle school student athletes that were participating in our sports. Middle school athletics, I'll kind of go through this as quick as possible. You can see the number of student athletes for each sport. Some of the highlights, 7th grade boys basketball finished 14-4 on the regular season and were SWAC champions. Girls basketball, 7th grade was 15-1, losing in the championship game of the SWAC tournament in a very close game. 8th grade was 17-0 on the season and were SWAC champions. They were also undefeated last year, so the future of girls basketball at Talawanda is very bright with this group of girls coming through. Very well coached, very all-in, very talented group. Can't thank the middle school coaches enough, both on the boys and girls side, for all the hard work that they put in. Wrestling, 16 student athletes, multiple SWAC individual champions with Grayson, Giovanni, Dakota, Keegan, Wyndon, all had won their weight classes in SWAC. I believe Wyndon may have only lost one match all year, so very successful year to him, and congratulations to all those groups and student athletes and coaches. Boys basketball, 24 student athletes. I put the number of seniors we had up there. It was 1, 3 juniors, 13 sophomores, and 11 freshmen. So we're a very young group of boys basketball, the boys basketball program last year. I think we had 6 or 7 seniors. So lost a lot of seniors and only had 1 to replace them. So 2-21 record and wins over Valley View and Franklin County. We had all conference honors with Bryce James, Kale Leach, and Sam Lippman. Bryce James also set the Talawanda career three-point record with 155 three-pointers in his 4 years here at Talawanda. Kale Leach set the single-season three-point record with 68 three-pointers this year. Both those records were set back in 08-09 season. I believe both of them were set, and they were just now broken this year. So congratulations to those two guys. They worked their tails off and deserved it. Braden Douglas is another one. He's only a sophomore, and he set the record for single game rebounds, most rebounds in a single game with 24. He had a couple other games with a ton of rebounds as well. So future's looking bright for him, and all 3 of those guys deserve it. They work hard. It didn't matter what the score was, how much time was left. Those 3 athletes never quit and kept playing as hard as they did in the beginning when the game started up. So proud of those 3 and the rest of the group as well. There it is, cheerleading. 18 student athletes. Cheerleading is a group that gets overlooked a lot just because they're not competing head-to-head in competitions a lot, but this group of girls and the coaches, Coach Easton and Coach Oldfield, do an incredible job, and they put in a ton of work. And as I evaluate sports, one of the ones I evaluate is also cheerleading. And I don't have a ton of expertise in cheerleading, so I compare it to other schools, other places that we go to. The amount of stuff that we do, the amount of cheers that we do, how in sync we are on a lot of things, and the energy that we bring is always a notch or 2 above most of the other schools that we play against. So in athletic events. So congratulations to them just for all the hard work that they put in. They deserve recognition for it, and I appreciate all that they do. There we go. Girls basketball. 16 student athletes finished season 9-14. 3rd in the SWAC. All conference honors to McKenna, Rose, and Grace. Season that was full of obstacles and health issues, from Coach Mary Jo having some health issues and not being around as much as she would like to. I think we cared more about Coach Mary Jo's health than she did. She was more worried about not being here, because that's just how she's wired. And then just several injuries throughout the season. I mean, there's a couple weeks there where we had one varsity athlete that was able to practice full go through at a time. So even with all those obstacles, challenges, the girls did a fantastic job and still managed to get 9 wins on the season. Bowling, 8 student athletes, 5 boys, 3 girls. We did not have enough to have a girls team this year, so we bowled co-ed throughout the season. They had a 3-6 record. Then they also had multiple tournaments that they competed in as well. Finished 3rd in the SWAC. All conference honors to Derek, Josephine, and Emma. The girls were able to bowl individually in the state tournament in the girls' side of things, and Emma and Josephine just missed advancing on to districts. They did a phenomenal job at sectionals bowling and had one of probably the best competition they had all year. They did great. It was fun to watch. Wrestling, 16 student athletes finished 3rd in the SWAC. All conference honors to Fisher, Josh, Will, Henry, Ashton, Alex, Kyler, Landon, and Colton. They all finished in the top 3 of their weight classes in the SWAC. Another successful year for all those guys and all the competitions they did. A lot of awards and medals across all the tournaments that they were a part of. Academic team just killed it again this year. Scott Schmidt does an incredible job coaching, and the students are all do a phenomenal job. It's 12 student athletes. They're 13-1 overall. They lost in a pretty big tournament. The end, that's their only loss at the end of the year against ECC school, as ECC was here as we hosted the tournament. Both JV and varsity were undefeated in SWAC play. Varsity was SWAC champions. SWAC player of the year was Jillian Danoff. And then they just placed 7th in the state in the National Quiz Bowl. And Olive Rice was the highest scoring freshman, and Dale Tilton was the highest scoring sophomore. So both those they're gonna keep advancing up, and we're gonna continue to have a strong academic team and one of the top ones in the state. Swimming, another program. Steve Pasquale does an incredible job and his coaching staff, and all the parents being bought in and volunteering and keeping things going. The student athletes competing and having a blast while they're doing it. 13 male student athletes, 16 female student athletes. We had 14 district qualifiers, 7 boys and 7 girls, so over half of our boys got into the district event, which is super competitive here in Southwest Ohio. State qualifiers, Abby Curry set school records, 50 freestyle, 100 backstroke. She finished 12th in Division I in the state of Ohio and 16th in the breaststroke in Division I in the state of Ohio. Anna Gregg, another one, made it in 2 events up to the state meet, finished 30th in the 200 freestyle and 31st in the 100 butterfly. Both those girls are sophomores, so we look for that to continue and to keep improving. So it'll be exciting to see them over the next couple of years. Obviously, a big thank you to senior athletes and their families, Pep Band, Mike Marston and that group. When they're in the gym for basketball events, it is just a whole nother level of excitement. It's so much better to be there, watch them perform and be part of everything. And coaches, all the hours that they put in for all these student athletes and families. Athletic trainers, Greg and Kendall, are top notch. We are very fortunate to have them here and have that resource. Custodial staff has been incredible this year, flexible communication, all that, willing to help with whatever we need. Staff and volunteers, they're kind of the backbone of, I know it doesn't always seem like a very important task, but those things are huge to put everything together and have those people in those roles and be dependable. And then always athletic boosters, all the people that volunteer their time on the board. That's athletic boosters is huge in any school system, and we have a great one and a lot of people that work hard to help our student athletes. One quick update, just kind of that OHSA made. They were a little bit, state's always been a little bit behind with the amount of schools and how many divisions they've had. A lot of other states have had less schools participating in a specific sport, but more division than what the state of Ohio has had. So the state just changed this next year, and the change is for schools like Talawanda, our size, the bottom part of that Division I. So we're not competing against, schools the size of Mason that are 2+ way bigger than twice our size in some circumstances. So they're going to take baseball, boys basketball, girls basketball, softball, volleyball, and instead of 4 divisions, they're going to make it 7 divisions. Soccer, it'll be instead of 3 divisions, we'll move into 5 divisions. That'll put Talawanda in Division III for all those sports. That's huge for us. because playing Division I, you always go into the state tournament with as high as expectations as you can, but when you run up against a Moeller in the first round and they're the number 3 seed in the state, all you can do is tell them to go out there and do their best. Well, and that happens often across a lot of our sports. Well, now we're going to be slotted in a place where sectional and district champions are things that are attainable, and especially when we have some talented groups come through, like girls basketball last year, that puts state championship right there, and that's one of your goals that you line up for. It gives us something to go for. So that's super exciting for our school district athletics all the way down through our youth programs. So that's something we'll be able to look forward to and hopefully capitalize on sooner than later. That's all I have. Any questions?
When it comes to these 7 divisions, how is it? Is it based on school size? Is that what?
Yes, all school size enrollment numbers. I believe the format is the top 64 schools are in Division I, the next 64 schools are in Division II, then the rest of the divisions get divided up as equal as possible based on our enrollment numbers.
So what would be the school sizes for our division?
So, like, we'll sit in the middle of Division III for the baseball, basketball, softball, volleyball, and we sit at around, like, our numbers this year, they go off the grades 9 through 11 numbers, boys and girls, and you go by gender. So girls, I think we're at 348 were our numbers from this year. That'll slot us for the next 2 years. Then you have competitive balance that plays in depending on the sport. But that doesn't change our numbers too much. And we're at 366 boys from 9 through 11 in our school that can play sports this year for Talawanda. So that'll slot us the next 2 years right there in the middle of Division III. So it depends on how it shakes out with all the other school districts, but somewhere from anywhere 280 to 400 maybe, somewhere in there.
Well, that's why I was interested in where we landed in that. So
Yeah.
we're right in the middle. Good.
Right in the middle for those. We'll probably be the top of Division III, towards the top of Division III for soccer
Okay. Thank you.
in there.
I do have one question. This sounds like a really positive thing in terms of literally leveling the playing field somewhat for our athletes. Are there any implications for our athletes in terms of being recruited if they're saying they're not in a D1 school but a D3 school? And I'm asking this because I really just don't know.
No, because it's for everybody. It's level on the playing field. And if anything, it helps because now you can become a Division III all-district player when we're not getting even a look in Division I type of a situation. So it's a benefit for pretty much all around for the most part. Hopefully they get on board with individual sports in the next year. And we can, because, I mean, our swimmers, our runners, our golf team, I mean, that's the type of sports that really can, I mean, we have some kids that will contend for state championships right now if they start making those changes and it works down into individual sports.
Does this change anything for football?
Football's been at 7 divisions due to the contact situation part of it. For safety, they could always, so they did that earlier. But we actually, with our enrollment numbers, we were only 2 or 3 kids into Division II with football. We were the last school in Division II. I think with our new enrollment numbers, we'll be one of the top couple schools in Division III for the next 2 years.
Thank you, and thank you to all the athletes and coaches and families.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jake.
All right, our Talawanda Middle School update, Mr. Derrickson and the friends he's brought along.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Fossalusa. I'm the 7th grade health teacher at Talawanda Middle School,
And I'm going to introduce a couple of students of ours who are going to be speaking to you guys tonight to give us some updates about what we're doing at the middle school. Sorry about that. You broke it. This is Addison Brecken and Layla Wen. I'll be back.
So excited to present for you tonight,
Today we are going to give you a digital tour of TMS.
where all your dreams come true.
There are about 700 kids in our school at TMS, and can you believe that almost 500 of those kids are on the honor roll?
That's amazing. Keep up the good grades, kids.
At TMS, we have a Brave Shop.
Students are able to use their Brave Bucks to purchase prizes at our lunch on Fridays.
Also, at the end of each quarter, there are opportunities to spend Brave Bucks on fun incentives like ice cream party, pizza party, and even a movie in the Commons.
We have what seems like hundreds of clubs at TMS.
Some are Earth Club, Little Aggies, Yearbook Club, Student Council, Spirit Club, Fishing Club, Pure Meditation, Drama Club, Polar Brave, BIT, Builders Club, and Coding and Engineering Club.
And we also have 6th grade band, 6th grade chorus, 6th grade orchestra, 7th and 8th grade band, 7th and 8th grade chorus, 7th and 8th grade orchestra, jazz band, Bel Canto Art Club, and Gamers Club.
I'm here to actually talk about the Spirit Club. It was a club that Mr. Derrickson suggested that Addison and I start this year at the middle school, and we actually started it. And we do all sorts of activities throughout the year to spread cheer. We have done Spirit Weeks. We also sell candy cane grams. We did we did a Valentine Day gram also. We also do other things that we do to help spread for our student athletes. We go to as many sporting events that we can, and we do. What else do we do? And we also plan on decorating lockers for the students this next year. We're going to start with track this season, but I know that's some other things we do.
We also have several sports. Some are 7th and 8th grade football, 7th and 8th grade football cheerleading, 7th and 8th grade volleyball, 7th and 8th grade cross country, and 7th and 8th grade track and field.
We also have 7th and 8th grade boys basketball, 7th and 8th grade girls basketball, 7th and 8th grade basketball cheerleading, and 7th and 8th grade wrestling.
I think our school hits a record for SWAC champions.
The 7th and 8th grade girls cross country team were the SWAC champions, and Katie Sparks placed first in race 6 at the state meet. The cross country teams are coached by Amelia Oberschlake and Pam Hodgson.
Also, the 8th grade girls basketball team went 33-0 in their season and were coached by Jason Reynolds and Stephen Roller. And the 7th grade boys basketball team went 14-4 and were coached by Ryan Butler and Sterling Shepard. Great job, Brave!
We love to get students to have fun at TMS, and our main goal is for students to want to come to our school. So we provide several fundraisers.
Some we have done so far are donkey basketball, Grieving for Glenn dance, cookie dough sales, pie sales and butter braids, fall festival, and the Feed the Needy Slam Jam.
Let's take a closer look at one of them that was a big hit this year.
Donkey basketball.
It's time to slam now. We got the real jam going.
The goal is to raise money for professional development for our teachers and to provide us money for what we call the Brave Shop. Brave Shop is where kids get rewarded for doing good things. They get Brave Bucks, and as they get these Brave Bucks, they're able to redeem them for prizes in our Brave Shop. So I did this at Batavia 2 different times as the high school principal, and we raised money down there for different organizations, FFA, for just a teacher fund, and so that's kind of where it came from. It's actually to unite our community. We live in a community that has a lot of rural area, and we're looking to bring everybody together, both city folk, country folk, and just have a...
So I started, it's going on 6-7 years with a different company, the original Ohio company, Buckeye Donkey Ball. One thing led to another, and I took it over. I've been doing it, January makes 3 years of me having this company by myself. So I switched, the original company used a different type of shoe. I use sneakers now, they're more effective, less farrier work, less maintenance.
Well, I was voluntold, and after my initial nervousness, I decided that donkeys aren't that tall, and I probably won't break anything, so why not? Well, I read the rules, and you're allowed to walk your donkey, but they say that in order to shoot the basketball, you have to be on the donkey, and to pass, at least one of you has to be on it. Oh. So there's less chance of falling, I think, if I stay on it instead of trying to get on and off and on and off. That's very true. So that's my strategy. Stay on the donkey. Falling off the donkey. Okay. Because even though it's not that tall, my bones are older than they used to be, so I'm nervous.
Sure, it sounded like a fun event. It's unusual. It's not something our department's ever done before. So I've seen these from when I was a kid, and just thought it would be a fun event to help be a part of the fundraiser. Well, that has me a little nervous. I'm hoping that everything goes well. I don't know, I've never ridden a donkey before, but just hoping that we all have fun and stay safe. I think getting the donkey to go where we want the donkey to go will be the hardest part. Yeah. As you can see, none of us are very good at basketball anyway, so I'm hoping the donkey gives us an advantage, but I think that's probably unrealistic.
It's definitely going to be interesting. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but it'll be fun.
Like I said earlier, I've been training my whole life for this, so it's just going to be a walk in the park. Future national champion, watch out on the news. You're looking at a future multi-millionaire in donkey basketball.
You know, I got the donkey riding part, now it's packed, you know? Perfect for me, but basketball part, don't know about that one. Hitting the ball in the hoop. Okay. We all ride horses, so the riding the donkey the part is not going to be hard, but hitting it in the hoop to score the points is
It's something that's unique. I've never done this before. It sounds fun and entertaining, so we go ahead and got a team, and now we're out here. I don't know, playing basketball is going to be an interesting thing to do. We'll see how it goes. I played basketball before, but never rode a donkey.
The Space Jam, all right.
The picture on the top right is a picture from the donkey basketball game. There we had several guests, including the Oxford Fire Department, Riley Fire Department, Oxford Police Department, FFA from the high school, and TMS teachers and some students.
The picture on the bottom right is the poster or campaign for the Groovin' for the Glen dance. This dance is a fundraiser for the 6th graders' trip to Glen Helen and for a little extra fun in the evening. This dance was a big hit with lots of decorations and fun.
The picture on the middle left is the campaign for the Senior Citizen Luncheon.
This event was for elders in our community to come and join us for drinks and treats. There was also a tour and live music for the seniors to enjoy.
We also do school-wide events that sometimes contain prizes that students love participating in.
Some are the Spirit Week, Senior Citizen Luncheon, and the 8th grade dance.
And the 6th grade dance, blanket drive, dodgeball tournament, and the FCC soccer game.
The picture on the top right is the picture from the FCC soccer game. Talawanda students and families got a sideline experience while players were warming up.
The picture on the top left is the one from the Spirit Week, one of the Spirit Weeks we did here at TMS. It was Halloween themed since Halloween was that week.
The picture on the bottom right is the picture from when the student council group delivered the blankets from the blanket drive to the Knolls of Oxford. So proud of how many we raised.
The picture on the bottom left is from the dodgeball tournament. The dodgeball tournament took place in 2nd and 3rd period, and students were able to choose to play or spectate. Students were also able to choose to skip the event and work in class.
We have several events planned on the future, so we hope you visit soon.
Thank you for listening to our digital tour of TMS. We hope you stop by.
Excellent job, girls. Thank you so much for that presentation. You know, Mr. Derrickson had asked me if the school board wanted to have a team in the donkey basketball tournament. And I said, I love donkeys, but I don't ride donkeys. But you know, looking at that now, if they do that again, we might have to talk about that.
It's been a long time since I've seen a donkey basketball game, and they haven't changed much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I want to say thank you for the pie sales. I've appreciated that very much this year. I also want to say you did an excellent job on presenting tonight.
Yeah, girls. Thank you.
You did a great job of presenting. Nice job. We're proud of you.
Great. Now we'd like to welcome Catherine Clayton, the Butler County Educational Service Center Director of Public School Safety, who's going to do a safety presentation.
I don't know how you guys are going to follow that presentation.
I know.
I was going to say, I'm a little hurt that I was not invited to the donkey ball, but police and fire were, so.
I was going to say, how did OPD do in that?
I was quite impressed with Chief Jones's donkey riding abilities. He's a man of mystery, many talents.
So as they're getting ready for the presentation, I just want to introduce Catherine Clayton. She works for Butler County ESC. We contract with her. She is a partner, one of our partners in safety. We had some information shared at the last board meeting, and we wanted to provide some information on what we can share, what we can't share, but to let you know that safety is paramount in the Talawanda School District.
So I have been, while we're waiting, I have been in this role since 2016. This was a new role. This was made because of the requirements from the ORC, OAC on school safety. The school districts got together and requested the ESC create a position that could help schools create comprehensive emergency management programs. My background is in emergency management. I came from Hamilton County Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and then before that, Butler County Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and then I began my public service career in Kenton County, Kentucky, in their emergency management program. So I have a lot of experience in the Southwest Ohio, Northern Kentucky region on planning, preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery to an all hazards events in Southwest Ohio.
Hey, Matt, how are we doing with the presentation?
Well, I will continue to stall.
Yep, that's what I'm doing, too, continuing to stall.
Thankfully, I never had a hard time talking. Really, what I wanted to come here today to discuss with you all was what is school safety in Butler County. Because of sensitive information, I will not be speaking on anything directed towards Talawanda or about Talawanda specifically. But I did want to really kind of give an overview of what is going on in the county in regards to school safety. I think in previous years, it seems like safety was more on the forefront because it was new, it was developing. School safety is ever changing, as our hazards are. We always want to adapt and adjust to any threat that may be either man-made, technological, or natural hazards. As we saw just a week ago, just to the north of us, experiencing, we believe, 8 tornadoes and may have a federal declaration coming. That's a lot of damage. So it is severe weather is a huge threat in Southwest Ohio, as is hazardous materials. So we don't want to spend too much time focusing on one hazard, which would make us vulnerable to all hazards. So we really want to have a comprehensive, solid foundation for school safety. I'll just go ahead.
I also know that Officer Rosser was here earlier and got called away.
He did get called away, so I will, yes, partnerships. Don't get ahead of my presentation now.
That's okay.
Yes.
I just know that he wanted to be here,
He
was
was
here
here.
earlier.
We
and I
did
said-
have a few partners that could not be with us today. We obviously invited, with me, I have Lieutenant Jeff Robinson with the Oxford Police Department, and I have Director Jim Bolin. He is the director of the Butler County Emergency Management Agency. Chief John Deathridge was also invited, could not come due to a previous commitment. And then we also had Phil Clayton, who is our Southwest Ohio Regional Disaster Services Supervisor with Ohio Emergency Management. He's actually up in the northern counties helping with the recovery efforts for the tornado. All, of course, would have been here tonight had they not had conflicts. So I'll just go ahead due to time constraints. So just really, you're just going to have to picture this amazing presentation, like the best thing you've ever seen. So school safety is required statutorily, right? So the governor did sign into law, and according to ORC's 5502 and OAC's, the Ohio Administrative Code 4501 and 3313, really governs sort of the bones of what school safety is in Ohio, which is every 3 years, schools and school districts are required to submit an emergency management plan to the Ohio School Safety Center. Every year in between those 3 years of submitting a plan, they have to certify that the plan is still current, which means that they will review the plan, update contact information, any changes in buildings or in drills, things of that nature. Every calendar year, every calendar year, they must complete what we call an emergency management test or an exercise based off of their current emergency management plans. Those are really designed to test the capabilities of a school district to respond to any number of hazards. According to 3737, they are also required to do drills. Now, we all grew up with the tornado and the fire drills. It is no different with schools nowadays. However, we do add 3 school safety drills a school year as well, and those could include lockdown, barricades, and rapid evacuations. School districts and school buildings must also complete a theoretical drill, which is just a really fancy way of saying let's have a short tabletop exercise or a discussion-based exercise on any number of hazards and how, as staff, are we going to respond to that. These are all designed to help keep school students and staff prepared, muscle memory. We all do our fire drills. We all know the stop, drop, and roll. It's the same with the tornado drills. We all know to get to an interior room, lower levels, and with safety drills, we all know to not be where the threat is at. It's that muscle memory to help us when the emergency happens. Additionally, schools classified as public schools must also complete a threat assessment training that is required for grades 6 through 12 in every school building. However, I do know some school districts have allowed all their school buildings, including elementary schools, to have a threat assessment team. Do not let that name throw you off. Really what that is a behavioral risk assessment for students that may need intervention services, and that is for the schools to be able to provide extra services to help students that may be struggling. We also have a statewide anonymous reporting system. That is anywhere any staff, parent, student, anybody may call that anonymously and report possible threats. I do know statewide it has also been used for self-harm, and we have been able to intervene in those services as well. And those tips that are credible, and I say credible because sometimes it may be Butler County, Iowa, and not Butler County, Ohio, and things like that can get confused. So when I say credible, that's what I mean, that they are talking about this jurisdiction. They are then reported to the Ohio School Safety Center as well. And all of those are classified. Is that the correct word, Lieutenant? Would you say classified? Meaning that they're not public records. They cannot be requested. This is really what I would call your bones of a school safety program. None of this creates a comprehensive school safety program. There is not one person, not one program, not one piece of technology that creates safe schools. It is a combination and a teamwork, if you will, of all of those things. So when I talk about daily common operations, this is what is happening on a daily basis. Like I said previously, schools have done these things for so long, almost over a decade now, that it's not just something that they do, it has become a part of their school culture. School safety is now a part of the culture of your school. So community partnerships, this is vital. Talawanda School District, any school district in Butler County is not out there on Lonely Island, although you may feel like it because being so surrounded by such rural areas, but you are a small community in a much larger community. We are all intertwined and not within our own bubbles. And the relationship buildings, not only within other school districts, within your own buildings, but with your community partners, with your EMAs, with your police, with your fire, with your road crews even, can really help bridge any gaps that you may identify in your plans and in your exercises. We have district school safety meetings in the counties that they meet quite regularly. This is a great opportunity to share information, best practices, any lessons learned after actions, after events. We will discuss specific topics at that time, perhaps bring trainings on board. It's a great opportunity to hear from the buildings what they're seeing and how we can adapt programs that way. We also have regional and county resources. Butler County in Southwest Ohio is incredibly rich with resources. Back in 2018, we started a program in the county to conduct all hazard vulnerability assessments for school buildings. We can spend an entire summer walking through 25 school buildings, possibly. Since then, we've walked through, I feel like 25 more, just helping to identify any areas that we may need to shore up, to strengthen in order to create safe schools. We have reunification workshops. Our next one is this summer, where we are able to bring schools and school districts together to discuss reunification plans, off-sites, any lessons learned from previous schools that have experienced reunifications. We talk communications, we talk partnerships again, and to help identify those resources and gaps. We have county-wide meetings here that we host with all the schools, the school superintendents in our districts in order to share information and lessons learned. We have regional safety meetings in Southwest Ohio where I go and meet with the Big Four, as I call it. So it's Hamilton, Butler, Claremont, and Warren counties will all meet to, again, discuss any issues, current events, most notably like the swatting incidents that we have seen in Southwest Ohio, and lessons learned in that. We have statewide conferences and trainings that we participate in, and most notably here at the end of the summer, there will be the Ohio School Safety Center's annual summit that we always participate. And then, of course, there is the daily communications and information sharing. There's always a flow of communication and information sharing happening between myself and the school districts, between the school districts and their buildings, between the buildings and their parents, and that is incredibly vital in sharing updated information. Grants and grant funding. So how do we pay for all of this, right? To keep our buildings secure. Obviously, we have prioritized safety projects, and just some things in Butler County that we've been able to do is obviously we developed those vulnerability assessments. We've done physical securities, technological upgrades. We've hired personnel such as SROs or school safety officers. There has been learning loss, technology, and academic materials to help during the COVID years. And then the services and resources are a new portion of our safety grants that we're seeing. They're allowing for mental health resources to be applied for grant opportunities. We have brought in millions in this county in grant funding, and that's, unfortunately, I couldn't get you an exact number because people were having a hard time going through the last 10 years trying to add up all of their numbers. But we have brought in millions, and that does not include the COVID funds that we received for the emergency declarations. Just a couple of the grants that we have used is the Attorney General School Safety Grant, and just recently the Attorney General's IT School Safety Grant, which districts and law enforcement can then partner up for grant opportunities. We did have FEMA declaration. I do know school districts in Butler County did apply and were able to receive reimbursements for any and all COVID funding that they had spent during those years. Bureau of Workers' Comp School Safety Grant, OFCC's School Safety Grant, the Ohio School Safety Grant. That's just a few of the grants that are available for school districts and schools to apply based off of their meetings, based off their exercises, based off their vulnerability assessments in order to prioritize those projects. Ready? All right.
Just to bring some things back to what Catherine said, I'm Jeff Robinson with the City of Oxford Police Department. I apologize to everybody in the crowd. I like to talk, and I talk very long-winded, and I kept these folks in executive session for a very long time tonight. So I apologize to everybody that's been waiting for this meeting to start. You can blame me and the long day that I've had. But to mention just our management team, the public safety and emergency management team, you know, Catherine mentioned a number of our partners here in the county, but we partner with state fusion centers, state information centers, the Highway Patrol, Ohio EMA, a number of federal agencies, and then other agencies surrounding the Butler County area. You know, as we talk about school safety plans, understand that they are protected by Chapter 5502 of the Ohio Revised Code. Throughout our work, we are often questioned to how or why schools are responding the way they do. But simply put, it's just not for public dissemination. This is protected information that it should not be discussed outside of the building or district safety teams. Those safety teams include the representatives we've talked about tonight, but as well as the representatives from the district, the individual buildings, and then district leadership personnel. This allows us to plan our processes and procedures to remain outside the hands of bad actors. We don't want people intending to do harm to our most precious population, our students, to know how we're going to respond to their intentions. As part of the public safety team, we do, however, plan for a multitude of scenarios and contingencies. I know that sometimes the lack of free-flowing information can be very frustrating. Unfortunately, this can be due to the chaos and rumor going on in an event. We do strive to push out vital information and correct information in consultation with all of our public information partners so that real-time decision-making can occur. Nearly every incident that we do respond to, be comforted that we debrief it and we review it for both the successes and improvement needs as they come up. Know that public safety is acting in the best interest of the school community when responding to the public safety concerns within this district. I do want to highlight a couple things as well that Catherine spoke on. This district needs to be congratulated on a couple things that they were some of the first to do in the state, certainly within the county. She spoke about the vulnerability assessment teams that were put together and the assessments that were conducted several years ago. The training that we've provided to the district teams, the building teams, they've been able to conduct those on their own with their building SROs. When we do those assessments, we do find gaps, we find vulnerabilities, and those are tools that we can then use that give us a lot of support and open up the grant processes that Catherine spoke of. We were the first county, to our belief, in Ohio that did this countywide. Every district in the county received these teams. We reviewed at least one building in their district and then supported them with continuing to review their other buildings in their district. And Talawanda was one of those schools. Additionally, without going into too many specifics about it, Talawanda is the first district to join the police and fire radio network that all of our public safety officials throughout the county belong to. This provides them with stable, confident radio communications where they can have the confidence to speak with building members, public safety members, and administration throughout the district should we lose phone service or we lose internet service. They've got that communication that's just the same as the police network and the fire network that we can rely on to communicate in an event. You know, I can't share enough and thank the partners we have. We've had a number of incidents over the years that our teams have had to come together in an incident. Fortunately, they have not been as grave as some that we've seen around the country, but I can tell you that you know, a lot of our personnel that respond to these have kids in these schools. You know, when something occurs, we hear from all ends of the district, from our law enforcement and fire personnel that are dedicated to this school district by having kids here. And oftentimes when they know that we're involved, they're confident in that situation, whatever it is, and that we're going to resolve it safely. I'd be happy to take any questions from the board. I don't know if Director Boland has any comments, But anything you guys may have, our door's always open. We're always looking for ways to improve, and we certainly appreciate the partnership that we've had over decades with this district.
Good evening. My name is Jim Bolin. I'm the director of the Butler County Emergency Management Agency. We've been thoroughly involved in the school preparedness planning efforts since Catherine's come on board, since I've joined the agency in 2016. Our team has worked with Catherine and her community partners that she's put together to work with our schools to make sure that they are a safe but nurturing environment where folks feel confident in their ability to go to school, to learn, to build community while being safe as well. I want to thank Catherine for all the efforts that she's done. I think some people see Catherine in her role and think that this is a role that a lot of communities have. We're very fortunate to have Catherine in Butler County. I know Hamilton County has a similar position through their Educational Services Center, but this is not a position that is a statewide mandate or even regularly available throughout the state. Catherine's focus is making sure our schools are safe throughout the county and building these coalitions that put together these plans that work with our stakeholders to make sure that in the event of an emergency that we are able and capable to respond. She's done a great job with that. Thank you.
I would just close with just saying that while it doesn't seem like it all the time, I want to emphasize that schools are safe. Schools are still a very safe place to be. They are secure, and they are secure because of the efforts of their staff, their administration, and their boards. You all have put a lot of policies and procedures in place, and I cannot thank you all enough for your partnership in helping me create a comprehensive emergency management program, not only in Talawanda School District, but across Butler County. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much, all three of you. I think this was really important for the public to hear, the systems that are in place, and the reminder that safety and security is paramount, and that means there are some things that simply cannot be shared and will not be shared. So thank you for this presentation, for this overview, and thank you all for the work you've been doing and the partnerships.
I just want to share too, it takes time. If there's an actual event going on, we are going to work our policies and procedures, and we have such strong connections with all of our local enforcements, not just in the Talawanda School District, but Butler County and outside of Butler County. We are strong because of our partnership. And I think our community needs to hear during these uncertain times, and you're hearing all of the craziness that's out there in the world, the swatting, we can't get sucked up into that. We've got to focus on what is right and protect our students and staff in our buildings and everywhere. See something, say something. Our students are doing that. Our staff are doing that. And we're working through issues. What we can't do is use social media in particular, Facebook, Instagram, any of those things, to spread information that often is untrue and often will give ideas to bad actors because it's false and incorrect. We need people, if you have a question, come ask us the questions. And we might be able to provide the information, or we might not, because it might be confidential. But understand, we are focused on ensuring all of our students and staff are safe. Thank you, and thank you for your leadership, your participation, because we have an outstanding district safety team because of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Malone, first reading of new policies and policy revisions.
Good evening. This is the most thrilling part of the board meeting tonight. So
we purposely put you last because
yeah, I
we
understand
know.
that. Okay, I have about 14 policies for first reading that I want to go through with you. So the first policy is policy 0100. It's a definitions policy, and all this policy is, the definitions of president and vice president are now referenced in bylaw 0173 dash board officers. They were previously listed under the bylaw 0170, which is no longer in the policy manual. Policy 0167.1, use of electronic mail and text message. This policy has updated language that states when board members communicate through emails and messages, including personal devices and communications where board business is conducted, those communications may be subject to the Public Records Act. The recommended change, the words "when possible" were eliminated, so that requires board members to use Talawanda emails when conducting business. Policy 2623, student assessments and academic intervention services. This policy has been revised to include the requirement included in House Bill 33 that by June 30th of each year, schools must provide parents with a student's score on state assessments administered to the student. And I just say with that, if the state gets the school district's information by June 30th, they will get those out by June 30th. It doesn't always happen that way. Policy 2623.02, the third grade reading guarantee. This policy has been revised to reflect current administration windows for student assessments found in Ohio Revised Code. Policy 3120.04, employment of substitutes. This policy includes a minor change prompted by House Bill 33, reflecting that districts may employ student teachers as substitute teachers on a semester-to-semester basis based on approval by the board. Policies 3140 and 4140, one is for certified staff, one's for classified. This is in termination resignation. This policy has been revised to reflect changes in House Bill 33, permitting districts to provide notice of the board's intention to terminate professional employee or classified employee by regular mail with a certificate of mailing, electronic mail with proof of delivery, or another method of proof of delivery. Policy 5310, this policy has been revised to reflect House Bill 33, which now requires public school districts with school buildings that enroll girls in grades 6 through 12 to provide free menstrual products. Policy 8600, transportation. This policy has been revised to update references to Ohio Department of Education and Workforce and properly reference school vehicles. This policy has also been revised to reflect the drivers of non-routine vehicles like vans do not need CDLs. However, if someone meets the requirements to drive a bus, which includes a CDL, they are also qualified to drive vans and non-routine vehicles. Also, travel times for the transportation of children with disabilities provisions have been added to help districts fulfill their obligation to establish travel time standards for students with disabilities. The determination of travel times for a student with a disability is subject to review by the child's IEP team, which ultimately is responsible for considering the individualized transportation needs of each child with a disability so that the district fulfills its obligation to provide the child with free and appropriate public education. Policy 8600.04, bus driver certification. This policy has been revised to add cross-reference to relevant policies, update references to the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, and properly reference school vehicles. Policy 8640, transportation for non-routine trips. This policy states that the Board of Education shall use school buses and other vehicles other than school buses, example vans, for transportation of passengers for purposes other than regular scheduled routes to and from school, for example, field trips and other district-sponsored field trips. Policy 8650, transportation by vehicles other than school buses. Because the administrative code uses the term vehicle and the revised code uses the term van, this policy has been revised and expanded to refer to vehicles other than school buses. Also, the policy has been revised to reflect the drivers of non-routine vehicles like vans do not need CDL. However, if someone meets the requirements to drive a bus, which includes a CDL, they're also qualified to drive vans and non-routine vehicles. Policy 8660, incidental transportation of students by private vehicles. This policy authorizes the incidental transportation by private vehicles of students of the district. Routine and non-routine transportation shall be subject to all requirements listed in Ohio Revised Code and relevant board policies and relevant administrative guidelines. Any incidental transportation must be approved in advance and in writing by the principal, director of human resources, in accordance with the superintendent's administrative guidelines. And then policy 9211, district support organizations. This policy has been updated to include language that states school employees and board members will not manage or have access to district support organization funds or serve as voting members or officers of the organization. And that is all the policies I have for first reading. Any questions?
Thank you as always.
I know it's thrilling.
Well, I know this is your favorite part of the job,
I love this
too.
part of it. Thank you. Have a
You
good
did
evening.
well. Let's clap for Mike. too. All right, finally, thank you all for your patience. We are finally at our public participation portion. Again, just some reminders. I'll go down the list here of people who have signed in. Just quickly state your name, general where you reside. Reminder that you've got 3 minutes each person. I'll give you a little reminder if you're getting close to that. Please address your remarks to the board. You can speak on any matters that are specific to the Talawanda School District, and it's your chance to talk and for us to listen. So with those guidelines, we are starting with Sarah Wendt.
I am here to speak about the proposed schedule changes for the coming year. I think that everything on the positive reasons for that sound great for everyone who won't be directly negatively impacted by it. Not everyone will be able to adjust their work schedules again. As a parent who has had to make 3 schedule changes for my children's school this calendar year alone, I can tell you that the last thing that I want to do is approach my employer about another change in my work availability. And I say this from a place of privilege, because I know that I'm not going to lose my job over this. The same cannot be said for everyone else. And I want to acknowledge that here, because I do think that the proposal seems to be pushing for some things that would be really nice for some of us to have, but at the potential expense of real life repercussions for other people. I think to make matters even worse, to offer as the only real kind of potential solution for the very pragmatic problem of childcare that this proposed schedule presents for families, to suggest that families, many of which who are already struggling to pay their bills and buy groceries, that they enroll their children possibly in a latchkey program that currently doesn't exist outside of Kramer, makes the proposal feel very out of touch with so many of the lives of real families that I see living in this community. And it just makes me wonder, because I do believe that the families who have kids in this district voted for that levy we had that didn't pass. And we are the ones who have had to weather the storm of the change we already made. So when is enough misplaced punishment enough? is it really worth disrupting everything we've become accustomed to now so that some people can have a perfect scenario, knowing the price that other families will pay for an unnecessary change? I think not.
We're going to stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mrs. Long?
I'm Mrs. Long. I've lived here in Oxford almost 50 years, and I'm here tonight to thank the board for voting the busing back in for this coming fall school year. I would just want to clarify and refresh your memory that the last month I sat there and listened to, I think it was a couple principals, about how much they loved this year's school schedule, how much good it is for the kids, how the parents aren't having no trouble getting their kids to school. Well, no. I've been out there. I've talked to parents. I know what chaos this school year has caused for parents, grandparents, and friends to get their kids to school at this school year schedule. So, and I just want to thank you again, because I'm one of those grandparents whose grandson did not get to ride a bus this year. And I know for a fact that it has caused trouble for my family and a lot of other families out there too. I'm not just talking about my family, but all the other parents out there, grandparents, that has kids that come to this school. I know what chaos it's caused. So again, I want to just thank the school board again for voting the busing back in for this following school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Long. Jeremy Michael?
Good evening, Board. Thank you for having parents in to discuss some of the changes that you've proposed. I'm here tonight to talk to and discuss the proposed elementary school start and end times. Several families within my community have asked me to come and speak to you. They were unable to come tonight. I've really struggled with how to convey this point to you, bridging the non-academia voice to academia. But similarly, I'm going to talk about how this will impact the families and the children in Talawanda schools. I'm going to do that by walking you through what a day would look like for that child and the impact that it would have on the family. So next year, I will be putting my 5-year-old on a bus. With the proposed time change, I will be getting my 5-year-old up at 5:30 in the morning, trying to get a non-self-sufficient young person dressed and fed and on the bus by 6:45 in the morning, still dark. By 7:15 morning bell, knowing that my child has probably not had a good enough breakfast at home because they have just woken up earlier than they should have in their sleep cycle, I will be looking for the school to then provide that breakfast, which in history of Talawanda school districts and feeding my child has been inadequate. My child has gone many meals without food because they didn't know how to ask for something else because of the rules applied to them. So after breakfast, at the 2:15 afternoon bell, the child will be forced to go into childcare that a family will be struggling to pay for. If the child is not put into childcare, the family is looking at pulling a full-time working parent out of full-time employment and either forcing them into part-time or pulling them entirely out of the employment market, which puts economically at-risk families and children at even more severe risk to the impact of the family. Not only that, but per wanting to raise a child in our family, at 5 o'clock when my wife and I get off work, we will have 1 hour to get off work, pick up our children, and feed them dinner before 6 o'clock bath and story time before putting them to bed at 6:30 at night. That gives me a total of 2.7 hours with my children during the day. That speaks nothing of the homework requirements that they will be required to accomplish.
You're just about at your 3 minutes.
Thank you.
If you could wrap up.
Any family time, any after-school sports or extracurriculars in arts or cultural activities. This is absolutely unacceptable and flies in the face of common sense. I'm sorry, but if you expect families in this community to put their children to bed at 6:30 in the morning, just so, and I'm paraphrasing communication from the school, so that this schedule was proposed by, so teachers.
I really need you to wrap up. You've gone over.
So this schedule was proposed by teachers, which I seriously doubt, that want to have their academic blocks finished by lunch. The adverse effects to your proposed schedule change do not speak to the school board's mission of building trust and confidence with the families and children and stakeholders that are in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. All right, Mike Dittman.
Good evening, Mike Dittman, Hanover Township. I recognize that the board has no intention of making changes to control costs. I have commented on administrator salaries over the past months, but Talawanda's administrators have the highest average salary in the county based on the CUP report. Now I'm being told that the CUP report is not accurate. There's some other magical numbers out there. I guess since the data doesn't fit the administration's agenda, now it isn't accurate. And this is very bothersome, folks. I mean, that was supposed to be our Bible to go by, and now throw it away, I guess. Number two, I notice that the new employee contracts are on the agenda to be approved. I didn't have a lot of time to review them, but if there's not a requirement for random drug screening in these contracts, they should not be approved. Just the last month, Mr. Davies said he was concerned with the legalization of marijuana that was going to have an impact on the students. Well, folks, it'll also have an impact on the employees. We might all think no one in our school system is on drugs, but I'll bet they are. And I think we need to know that. And, you know, we ought to make sure we have random testing for all employees. I know it's not, you know, a lot of employees don't like it, but it's, you know, in the private world, that's been going on for decades already, folks. Next thing in your new contract, Article 10.5 of the new contract, retirement contribution pickup. It says this pickup plan is at no cost to the board. My question is, where does the money come from then? You know, hopefully we'll get an answer on that. And my last question is, when is the board going to approve the grade banding to save the $400,000 that we said it would save? Or aren't we interested in saving money anymore that we've had this windfall? Thank you all for serving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dittman. All right. Again, thank you everyone for participating. We really do appreciate that, and we do want to hear what people have to say. So we're going to move on to the report of the treasurer. We're going to block items A through J. A is approval of minutes. B, approval of gifts. C, approval of appropriation modifications. D, approval of then and now over 3,000. E, approval of the financial report for February 2024. F, resolution approving rates and amounts for fiscal year 25. G, approval of the purchase of 3 replacement servers. H, approval of 2024-2025 Ever-Driven Technologies Amendment Number 5. I, approval of ABS agreement for the 2023-2024 school year. And J, approval of an MOU for Butler County Educational Services Center Union Day Therapeutic School. Do I have a motion to approve agenda items 6A through 6J?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Questions, discussion?
Would first like to say thank you to Kate Tuttle, who donated the Easy Stand Bantam stander for our special ed department. That did have an estimated value of $6,000. So I would like to say thank you to Ms. Tuttle.
Does anybody have any questions or? Again, we do have this sort of big ticket item on these new servers, but this is something that it's been in the pipeline for a few years now. It's been on the plan, and anybody who works with technology knows that 12 or 14-year-old servers are not adequate for managing the data that we have to manage as a district. Is there anything else we need to know about that? This has been fully vetted, right? We're going through the.
It's been fully vetted. We have all of the quotes. The matrix that is part of the board docs just compiles everyone who submitted the quote and the specifications of each, whether it, the gigabytes and all of that. But it did go through the entire RFQ process. And to your point, it has been budgeted. It has been in the technology forecast that the IT director and I sit down at least twice a year to review and to discuss.
Thank you. Any questions or anything? Nope. Okay, let's call the vote, please.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Bothast?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes. A couple informational items from me. I just wanted to let you know that next month our facilities department will be putting out an RFQ for preventive maintenance for our mechanical equipment within our buildings. This is not to say that the company or companies that we are currently using are doing anything wrong. We are just trying to broaden our scope of vendors and also to see if we can get a more competitive pricing. So I just want to let you know that that will be coming forth during our April meeting. Last item up is that our fiscal year 23, I need to just sit here. Our fiscal year 23 audit is in draft form with the Auditor of State. It should be up and live on their website by the time our April meeting comes about. There were a few compliance recommendations that we will be implementing immediately, and the rest of that was a very clean audit with no findings for recovery.
Excellent. Thank you, and thank you to you and your staff for keeping us on track and out of trouble.
Try.
With the state auditors. Thank you. All right, moving on to the report of the superintendent. We're first going to look at item A1 under approval of certificated licensed personnel, the acceptance of an administrative contract for TMS principal. Recommended that the board award a one-year administrative employment contract effective 8/1/24 to Pamela Thur, who has her MED, with 225 annual workdays pursuant to the terms and conditions of her individual employment contract. Do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
You, Mr.
That was me.
Bocas?
Yes, second.
Okay.
Can I
Question,
ask-
discussion?
Can I ask a question? Yeah, I was just going to say, I was told that Pamela or Ms. Thur was sitting in on interviews already for other employees.
That is correct.
But that was kind of confusing to me because I know like coaches aren't allowed to be on the field at all before they've been approved here. So I wasn't sure what the difference was there.
I, as the superintendent, have the authority to allow her to come. She did not lead and direct them, but she did participate in interviews because if she was approved, it would be her staff. So yes, that is correct, yes.
Anything else? Any other questions? Thank you. Let's call the roll.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mr. Bothast?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we're going to block the rest of items under A, B, and C. This is A2, acceptance of resignation of certificated licensed personnel. A3, approval of a one-year limited employment contract for some counselors, 2 counselors and 2 intervention specialists. A4, approval of a building substitute teacher. And then B1, acceptance of resignation of district maintenance groundskeeper for retirement purposes. B2, acceptance of resignation of Kramer head secretary for retirement purposes. B3, acceptance of resignation of Bogan educational assistant for retirement purposes. B4, acceptance of resignations of classified personnel. B5, acceptance of resignations of classified personnel. B6, resignation of classified personnel. B7, resignation of classified personnel. B8, acceptance of termination of classified personnel. B9, acceptance of resignation of classified personnel. B10, acceptance of resignation of classified personnel. And B11, approval of a limited employment non-teaching employee contract for the 23-24 school year. And B12, approval of substitute classified staff employees. Along with C. C1, approval of supplemental contracts. C2, approval of amended supplemental contracts. And C3, approval of supplemental contracts. Do I have a motion for all of those?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, questions? I would like to give a super shout out to our retirees. John Witt, who's been with the district for 35 years, is a maintenance and groundskeeper. Denise Richer at Kramer, 22 and a half years. And Patricia Frizzell, educational assistant at Bogan, who's been with us for 23 years. Thank you for the longevity of your service.
I want to echo those same sentiments and thank you for your service because you have made a positive difference in the operations of the school district. And the other thing that I want to thank is Pam is here in the audience tonight. So I want to thank you. You're officially here. And you are also a community member that lives in the community. So I want to thank you and welcome you on board.
Any other questions, comments? All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Mr. Bothast?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. And then we're going to block items C, wait, that's right, D, sorry, 7D and 7E. 7D is the approval of a 3-year contract with the Talawanda Educator Association, and 7E is approval of a 3-year contract with the Talawanda Classified Staff Association. Do I have a motion for those?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions, discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Bothas?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mead?
Yes.
Mr. Otto?
Yes.
Dr. Howard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I would like to thank the unions for their good faith bargaining and for reaching an agreement with us. So thank you for such a positive tone. All right, moving on, our last few items here. 7F, discussion and next step for an administration tiered and salary schedule. All right. Dr. Thoreau, do you want to start this, or would you like?
Either way. So we've talked about TEA and TCSA contracts, which were just approved, and now we're looking at the administration. I know the board has always talked about ensuring that we get all of our employees to around the 50th percent in that area in Butler County. So here we are wanting to open up negotiations for the administration and have conversations about moving and placing those individuals on steps that will get them to the 50th percentile, but also reward the staff that have been here for multiple years. And what I mean by that is we have staff members that have been here 15, 20 years in administration, and we need to keep that because that keeps some seniority, service, continuity going. I know there's been some comments that it is not accurate that using the CUP report only as average, that we are average in Butler County, but we have provided you with some negotiated items, and during negotiated items, we don't share information until a decision is made one way or the other. But I can tell you that we looked, Shauna, myself, and Mike Malone, at comparable school districts as well as Butler County school districts, all Butler County school districts, and some other school districts. And when you look at an administrator that's been here 15 to 20 years and what they're getting paid, and you look even at some of the school districts I just mentioned, you will see that they are not in the 50th percentile. And I know we also, a recommendation was from one board member, was to look at Monroe, Edgewood, Ross, and us. And we did by positions. Some of the issues that we have, which are found in the CUP report, is how schools code their administrators. If they don't code them the same way, they are not factored into the averages and reports. And that happens. That's a reality, and it does happen. So we went out and we took names off, but we actually went out and found what was a director of curriculum. And they may call it a director of curriculum, they may call it teaching and learning, they may have different names for it. And then we tried to find the exact match for that, and we listed their salaries. What it doesn't include always, sometimes they're retired, rehired individuals in there. There's also other perks that some administrators get in their salaries. Shauna, did I hit it pretty well, or?
Yeah, so I just want to add that there are a number of school districts who have an administrative salary schedule. They've
Yes.
got, and where they also group different positions to put them into groups or tiers to fit into that salary schedule. So this isn't just an administrative negotiations. This is trying to create and come up with a hiring placement tool so that we can recruit qualified people. And right now, our salaries, our beginning salaries are not competitive. So this initially started out as a hiring tool, but then when we started to take a look at our leadership team, our staff members, and fit them into this, it's like, ooh, wait a second, this isn't going to work. And so we did start asking for salary schedules of Butler County, Hamilton County, and then there are some even in Dayton areas. So it wasn't just about, hey, we need to start negotiating. This started with, we need a hiring tool to be able to recruit qualified candidates.
So what we've used in the past has been a range, whatever that range is, $50,000 to $70,000, and people were placed in it. But there was no comparison to other school districts in the recent years to upgrade those ranges. So other school districts have grown their ranges or their salary schedules, as Shauna is talking about, but we have not.
Well, it sounds like, part of the complication here is we are talking about kind of a big restructuring of how we think about administrative
Correct.
salaries.
Yes.
That we're not negotiating individual salaries, we're coming up with a tool, as you said, a salary schedule and a tiered system that enables us to look at administrators as a group. Right, and then place them as individuals within that group, the exact same way we do with TEA and classified staff. The complication is they're not a union, so the negotiations around that don't look the same.
They don't.
So I think that's one of the points of discussion here is how do we go about talking about this restructuring in a way that maintains the integrity of the negotiations as well. Again, we cannot release, in the same way that we do not release specifics of negotiations with the unions on contracts because that's confidential information, we can't release the specifics of these proposals yet because they're in negotiation.
Can we
So how do
ask
we proceed with the
broad-
negotiation?
Broader questions, like, I have a question, like, who kind of sponsored the task force? Who was on it? I have like
All
kind
of the
those kind of
administrators were on it. We started with the conversations with the administrators, so they were all involved in it. Yeah.
So like, I wasn't sure if maybe, because prior to me being on the board, if the board kind of pushed this, or if this was a superintendent
This
thing.
is
I
the
wasn't sure.
superintendent and treasurer
Okay.
and our leadership team.
Okay.
Shauna and I represent, while there isn't a union for the administrators, and I also want to say the administrators aren't just the administrators that are the principals. We also have exempt employees that are non-union people, like our building secretaries, for instance, that are also included in there. So it's having, which we did, we've had conversations with our leadership, and we've also gone over the data. So it would be the superintendent and treasurer's responsibility to bring forth, just like what we did with TEA and TCSA, the classified staff, of a proposal and recommendation. But what we're looking for right now is this discussion. We've given you some information for negotiations. If there's other information that needs be, we will do that. I understand that some information was shared prematurely, which shouldn't have happened, but we will work to then bring a proposal to you. That's how it's always worked with the administration. Administrators do not negotiate their individual contracts with board. It's done through the superintendent and treasurer, and that's how it's done in most districts.
So with this salary schedule, would it be based at all on performance, or would it all be time? And that kind of leads to another question. If you have an administrator who was in one role and they've moved to a different role, and it's a different role, different
We have
job
that.
duties.
That has happened.
Are they going to get, I don't know how to put this, kind of time in service for, if, say, it was 15 years or something? Are they getting the full 15 years if they've only been in the current position they're in, the one that they were promoted to, for the last 5 years? Would it be 5 years or 15 years?
Administrative experience is administrative experience in whatever position that you're in. So exactly what you're saying. If they moved into their first year into the position, but they had 15 years in another position, they'd be on year 16. So we count those administrative experience years. We do not count the teaching experience years in it.
Because that's kind of different than real world. You know, if I take a different job and it's completely different, like if I want to apply being a quality assurance manager, I would start as a step one. Like I would not get any credit for my 21 years of service as a research scientist. I mean,
So you would take a pay cut?
no, if I took a step up, like a
if
promotion, like from, say, if you were a lower level administrator and you took a position as a higher level paid administrator, but I would start there as a step one at that promotion level. I would not get
But
credit.
you have a tiered level that we don't have. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
So even in a tiered level that we're proposing, we would need to change that tier, which we can change that, so step one would match that, but it's going to inflate the salaries even higher to get to that point. But we can do that based upon, example, we don't have an assistant or an associate superintendent, so I'm going to use that, or a business manager. We could look at the range and start a 0 or 1, step one, whichever you want to call it, one, at that level and not count, but that step level would be much higher than what we're proposing in this.
I'm just saying, it seems like in the real world, if you change what you're doing, you don't necessarily get credit for everything you did before.
I
if
also
it's a
think we
different
need to be
job.
competitive and attract, as Sean says, and keep what we have. But again, the board will be able to make the decision on what's going forward. So we're looking for ideas for you to look at, or for us to look at.
And I'm going to ask that we refrain from using terms like real world when it comes to employment. Teaching is, in fact, a real job, and so is adminning at a school. So let's just refrain from that, please. But if you want to know the history of how salary schedules work in education, this isn't unique, and it goes the same across the board. So maybe this is a conversation to save time and people's time to have it a different time.
But you are right.
These are also exempt positions. They don't have to be on a salary schedule.
I'm sorry?
These are exempt positions, correct? They don't have to be on a salary schedule, is what I'm saying.
No,
These could be more performance-based raises versus.
I will tell you though,
just
you are,
moving up a
you
ladder.
are right, and that could be included in it. But I can tell you, we do an evaluation process in there, and if we have individuals that are not meeting performance, they are coached out or they are being referred out by being terminated for that. And so the performance, I think I will speak highly of our current staff members that are in leadership and the exempt roles for that. And again, there is, if you, as David is saying, I don't know any school district, merit pay used to be very big back in the 90s, and you're not seeing any school districts really doing anything with merit pay.
Because it
anymore.
failed.
It failed. You're exactly correct. And that's from administrators to teachers to staff. It just did not work. But again, Shauna and I will go back and we will look at whatever ideas you want, and we will bring forth a package.
I was just curious, how many positions have we lost in the last 3 years, do you think? Administrators.
So I'm going to go on it. We have 2 individuals right now that are being recruited, and they are hoping that an administrative package, I'm going to say, would pass to keep them here. They want to stay in Talawanda. They want to go there. Last year, we lost a high school AP who went to a neighboring school for a $10,000 same AP, high school to high school position. We had an elementary principal who went to another elementary principal with one less grade level for a $30,000 increase. We have had changes in our central registration person. We are on our third person with that. Let me see. Yeah, third person with doing the central registration right now.
Well, I know one moved to Florida, so that wasn't
Well-
pay. One, I believe she was one of the central registration personnel.
Yeah, she what?
She moved to Florida. It wasn't because of pay.
Yes, it was. I mean, I had conversations, and I know her. She moved to Florida, yes, but she got a better job. She wasn't going.
But she moved to Florida.
The question
you
was
asked
who
with the
left in the
turnout.
last 3 years, and he's answering.
No,
the
I said
question.
because of pay. Like, do we
I
have
think
any
that's
documentation
but
stating
that's
that these
subjective.
people left because
That's
of
subjective.
pay?
That's completely subjective.
But if you're asking us to vote on this based, people are leaving because of pay, how many left because of pay? Do we have any documentation
I
that
just gave
they
you
left?
documentation. I just gave you two, the high school AP, the elementary principal last year, and we have two this year that are administrators that are looking at higher pay.
Did
There's
any of
4 in 2
them
years.
do exit interviews and write that in their exit interview that that's
I
why
have
they're
conversations.
leaving?
That's how I know the two this year are leaving. That's how I know the two that left last year and what they left for. That's why I can give you that number. Yes. I understand you may disagree with this, but it is a problem. We are very fortunate that we have some administrators that have been here 15 to 20 years, because you can look around at other school districts, that is not the case. But if we keep paying these low ones, as we are hearing, we have two this year that are looking, two last year that left.
So one thing I look at, I mean, earlier you talked about administrators in comparison to the county. And I know we've talked about comparable school districts. That's what I would be interested in. Comparable size school districts within our entity, within our county right here.
So I gave you that information. You have, Sean and I and Mike have given you that information. Not only comparable schools in the state of Ohio, but you got to be careful where they are, the cost of living, that type of information, seniority, how they code them. But you also have Butler County, and you have some surrounding schools as well. I think there's like 40 schools on.
So I'm really focused on what we talked about
Yeah,
earlier.
and you have that information.
And I'd like to look at, see if there's an outside source that could come and look at that information. I know doing these comparisons is time consuming. And I think having someone take an outside look, and that may not be possible. There may not be a firm that does that. And it might also be prohibitively expensive to do. So I
asked Jason Stuckey, who was the attorney, and he has not found anybody on that at that point in time. And I think, Shauna, you were going to look to see what a state audit.
I have an email out to them and have not heard back.
Yeah, I know we just recently did this, but if that's a possibility, Chris, I don't know. My assumption is to do an audit like that is going to cost $25,000 off the top of my mind, and I don't know that I would recommend that. But if the board would like to do that and spend that money to verify the numbers that we're getting from the state and from school districts,
Well, this is public data. You can get it from the Buckeye Institute. It's not.
I use that data.
Yeah, it's something that anybody who understands public education can easily access. But in regards, just to clarify some things, and this is from a public educator who understands this, the CUP report is very similar to how they rank school systems and how they score school districts. It's a convoluted algorithm that doesn't really make sense to the common person, but it has variances. And for the CUP report, there's a law of averages problem with it. If you have a big school district that has a lot of different admin roles, you're going to lower your averages when it comes to salaries for your top administrators, because all of them are also classified as administrators. Everyone is. If you have a smaller district and you have a very small amount of top admin people, you're going to obviously have higher rates of salaries as your average for admin. It's just, to dumb it down, and I'm sorry to do that, it's going to be as simple as that. So you can't really look at those things as gospel, just like I don't look at state report cards as gospel, because teachers can't control attendance of students, but yet they're still held accountable for it. It's going to be different for different school districts. So just referencing something because it sounds smart doesn't necessarily mean that it's valid. Talawanda, per the Buckeye Institute, because this is up-to-date salary information, has as their top administrator is number 2 from the bottom in Butler County. So if it comes to salary, our treasurer is within the top 3 or 4 from the bottom in Butler County. You can compare them whatever schools you want, do the legwork yourself, that's fine. I don't think none of those things are hidden. It's not clandestine information. It's all very, very public. And I just wanted to get that out there so you know you can access this. Just Google Buckeye Institute, and it's all there. My salary is there. Everyone's salary is there. If you're a public employee, it's there. I think you'll be surprised and disappointed on what some of our admin make here in Talawanda schools.
I think, so the conversation, sorry, go ahead.
In this discussion, I think I agree with the person that said to you we should compare ourselves more to the Monroes, Edwards, Rosses.
I agree.
We will not be able to
agree.
compete with some of the larger school districts and what they pay principals or assistant principals. And if people choose to leave to go there,
I agree.
well, that's a career move they made.
Agreed.
And for their family and stuff. What we don't want to be doing is losing people to similar districts or districts smaller than us when we're capable of competing with them if we choose to do. And I'm very concerned that we continue to attract and retain good people. I think it's something we got to look at. I want to make sure our comparisons that make sense for Talawanda, and realize, you know, it's like the Cincinnati Reds trying to compete with LA and New York for salary people. You can't do it. We have to stay within our realm to do that. And I do think we know people have left, particularly in that principal, assistant principal area, because of money. I don't think we have data enough on some of the other positions. I think you're correct. I think it would be nice to get some more information.
That was a question I had, is if we know there are certain positions that we're losing or we're having a hard time hiring, would it be possible to adjust that kind of pay and maybe not all of it? Does it have to be an all or nothing? Is kind of a question that I have.
I don't know how you would increase one director or one principal over another.
No, it would have to be everyone in that position. Like, you know, if you had 3 elementary school principals, it would have to be, this is the pay for elementary school principals. But I'm saying, you know, if it's a vice principal issue, across the board for vice principals, you know, if that's where the issue is.
Well, that's part of what the suggestion of doing this kind of tiered schedule, that we are kind of breaking these positions down and saying these, kind of leveling them out, whether it's, you know, just on one person to one person. Again, that would be on the step part of it as well. So the advantage of going to this tiered system is there will be a big adjustment to it initially, but then it makes that whole process easier. And I do, as Dr. Thoreau said, I do believe there are performance indicators that are constantly kind of built into that as well. I don't think tonight we're not discussing details of the contracts themselves. We're just sort of, what are the issues, what are the questions, what are the challenges, and how do we move forward? Again, since this is not a union negotiation, we don't have official union negotiators that are sitting down at a table. This is a different kind of process. This involves the treasurer and the superintendent basically working with the administrators to come up with these recommendations. That is then what comes to us. So it kind of sounds like we have more information to digest. We cannot continue to put this decision off, though, because people need to know what they're going to be paid next year, especially if we've got people who are being recruited. So I don't think we can put this off indefinitely. We can't wait until August to make this decision.
I do think it needs to be the right decision, though. I mean, if
Yeah.
we're not ready, we're not ready, kind of a thing.
And if we're not ready right now, we're not ready. So if we need to take, but again, I just don't want to keep pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off. We need to get ready and need to move forward with that.
And Dr. Howard, one thing I would recommend, if anyone has questions, including the people on the board, if they have questions to need clarification about, education is a unique realm, unlike other employment. That's an opportunity to email Dr. Thoreau or Shauna in advance and say, hey, can you answer these for me? This is unique to me. I'm not used to this. I work in a different career, and that's the time maybe to do that.
I certainly had, when I first came on the board, that was a huge learning curve for me.
Sure, absolutely.
What the union salary schedules are, what the administrative salary schedules are. Again, it works differently than others. So it sounds like, again, I'm trying to hear what everybody's saying. It sounds like we are kind of putting some feelers out about the possibility of getting another set of eyes on it, but it doesn't sound like it's not a positive outlook on being able to do that for a reasonable.
We both just don't have information. I know we've reached out to the attorney. We just don't have the information, but we are still kind of looking at that possibility. And then we individually need to continue to digest all the information we've been given, ask questions where appropriate, and I think we're going to have another executive session then next month to then kind of sit down and hash this out. Does that sound like a reasonable course of action for everybody?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sound good to you?
Yes.
Oh.
Were you talking to?
I was talking to both of you.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I shook my head.
Talking to
I thought you saw
everybody. Okay, so again, thank you for the discussion. We will continue with the information that we've got. Again, if you've got questions, ask questions. Again, also remember, and this is for the public too, this is a negotiation, so we cannot discuss or disclose specifics of these proposals yet because they are not public and they are not finalized. So thank you all for your discretion. Okay. Item 7G then, the discussion of the 2024-2025 school start and end times. Before we turn this over to Dr. Thoreau, I do want to make sure the public understands this is one of the items that we do not vote on. This is Dr. Thoreau's task. We vote on the financial aspect of it. That's what we did in December when we said, yes, we're willing to go ahead to reinstate two-tiered busing. At that point, then, we say, Dr. Thoreau, now it's in your lap to work out the logistics of it.
Yeah.
I want to make sure people understand that. We're not voting on this tonight because this is not our job to vote on this. So, Dr. Thoreau, thank you.
So we had a couple people tonight that talked about it in the public participation. I also had a few emails. I had 4 emails that did not like this elementary starting first. I had 1 starting that, yes, they liked it. And I had 2 that would like to go back to or keep what we're currently doing with the one-tiered busing. So we've, as a board, has talked, and I know board has changed over time about older students, middle school and high school students in particular, having a later start time. We've seen there's evidence, there's research, there's studies on there that show that those older students need that time. Elementary students still need sleep, don't get me wrong on that, but they also get up earlier biologically than they do with middle school and high schools. And our board has talked about, which we have over time, pushed back the middle school and high school start times as much as we possibly can, but understanding with a two-tiered system, which people don't understand, you have to have an hour and 20 to 25 minutes in between each of the routes due to the 144 square miles of geographic terrain that we have to cover. We are a huge area. And we also want to keep bus times to an hour, about an hour or less. Our current routes have been increased to an hour and 15 minutes or less with the one tier. We've also moved to a 2-mile no transportation. We also aren't doing a high school transportation currently, which allows us to have 28 routes to be able to bring students to school. Going to a 2-tiered system, reducing the 2-mile back to where we were 1 mile, right there, that's about 461 students, and then bringing back high school students. We don't have many junior and seniors that ride the bus, but we, in the past, have had a good number of 9th and 10th graders that do ride the bus. We will need the 2 tiers, and that will be approximately 32 routes. The 32 routes may increase to 33 routes because right now our special ed numbers and the special ed buses are fully loaded. If we get another student with a wheelchair, we're going to need another bus for that, and that's going to increase that. So the estimation is that we're going to have 32 routes going back to what we were. We're going to have families re-sign up so that we get exact numbers like what we did last time so that we can determine the hours and times. We never send out bus passes earlier than August. It's usually within the first 2 weeks of August that the bus routes are confirmed. We've had all the people that have moved out, moved in, and the routes are then sent to our families as well as posted on our website, and we update that when it occurs at any more time. So there are studies that show an earlier start is better, but that also, I get, there is going to be no great answer. We have the choice of starting the elementary students at 7:15, which they will have a breakfast time in there because that's built in, or we go back to the old way, they're starting at 9:30, and some of our students didn't get home to 5:15, 5:30. So the old way, you had to have daycare in the beginning of school or somebody to watch them if your job was there. And some even had to do it at the end of the day, even though they were getting home at 5:15, it just depended on their jobs. It's not that everybody works an 8 to 4 job anymore. Job times are all over the place. This proposal with like a 7:15 start, you're right, the people who are living the farthest away that have the hour drive, commute time when the bus, will have to be on the bus longer and earlier, and they will have to get up. And yes, they will get home probably 3-ish, if we dismiss around 2:15, 3-ish, 3:15, depending on the bus route. So yes, they will need daycare possibilities for that. And so it's going to be a challenge either way. You're going to need it either way. Our school day does not cover an entire 8-hour workday plus the time for our families to go to work and come back to the transition times for them. So my decision based on talking with teachers, talking with our TEA staff, I even messaged our classified staff president and our administrators that they see this current schedule working really well. They like being able to get the ELA block and math blocks before lunch in, and then have the science social studies after that, versus we go to the 9:30. Well, it's not a problem, but when you have ELA in the afternoon or math in the afternoon, kids are not as engaged as they are in the morning. These are the elementary students that we're talking about. We have noticed in our current schedule, attendance has gone up, and we have noticed that student response responsiveness and alertness has also gone up, which we know will make a positive difference in understanding, learning, and depth of knowledge. An earlier home also means there will be time to complete homework, eat dinner, and have time moving on to the next extracurriculars. When your students are getting home at 5:15, 5:30, you know this, you're on the run. You're putting your kid in the car, doing homework in the car, and you're eating the car to go do whatever extracurricular you're involved. So these are just some positive, but it's a negative because students are getting home and you're going to have to figure it out. Parents are going to have to figure it out earlier. The same thing goes for the 9:30 start. You're trying to figure out up to 9:30 what you're doing with your children because a lot of jobs don't start at 9:45, 10 o'clock, depending on how long it takes you to get there to your job. Middle school and high school students will start school later under this proposal, which we've talked about, which would be good. Staff still have their daily collaboration. I know we made an adjustment in December, which was good, but staff will still have the collaboration time built into either the 9:30 start or the 7 o'clock start. The daycare. The Y currently, as was mentioned, is only offered at Kramer and it is based on income because there has not been enough families wanting it at Marshall or at Bogan. Now, we've talked with the Y. They're willing to open up the latchkey at Marshall and or Bogan if there's enough students to do that. The other thing we're talking about, there's no longer an early Wednesday release. We're not bringing that back. I just wanted to make sure that people understand that. We've built in those data collaboration days, which takes the place. It's almost the same amount of minutes. Our high school will continue to offer what they call a zero bell, which also helps with some of those classes like strength training, that there's so many kids that sign up for them and they don't have enough classes to do that. They're able to offer another session. So some students are able to come in. The other thing that we have to look at is elementary students, kindergarten, first grade, we need an adult to receive them, which could be problematic with a 2 p.m. dismissal time. So there is a possibility that if there's an adult at home and is okay, a grandparent or whoever it is, that you could fill out a waiver, which we would implement, that would allow that student to walk himself or herself or not. But the issue that we have and we've always had is even in this current one, even with the 931, we always have some occurrences where there is not an adult to greet and meet the K first grader. And what we have done in the past is we've circled, we've called, and we've got to work on this. You have to be there, and I get that. And if you're not, what we will do under the 7 o'clock, 7:15 start, with the first occurrence, we will bring them back to the high school. We will have a staff member there that will watch the students, and we will have a bus referral, and we will communicate with the parent and guardian. And then on the second occurrence, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to start collecting fees to do that. The second offense is at $50, then it goes to $100, then another $100 for fourth offense, and then possible removal for bus transportation on that. Now, we're not talking about if somebody missed in September and then they missed in January. We understand that. But we have some current occasions this year, last year, ever since I've been here, that families are not there on a consistent basis. But we also understand a 2 o'clock dismissal is hard, but a 9:30 start is also hard. Again, no great way to to fix all of the issues that are coming up with. So I also know a negative is families rely on the high school, middle school students to watch their children in the PM. That's going to be a problem because they won't be there for an hour after that. We won't have an issue with most high school and middle school athletics because under the 9:30 rule, our buses were not available until they dropped off the elementary, which was like 5:15, 5:30-ish. By doing this schedule, our buses will be available a little bit earlier at 4:45, which will help with the traveling of the many extracurriculars that we will have. There most likely will not, another negative, will not have a shuttle for the middle school students, although that are traveling from the middle school to high school for like a track. But we are looking into seeing, and we'll have to wait and see how many students sign up for busing, because there could be room for those buses that are headed in the high school way and drop off at the high school if there's room on the bus. Again, we won't know that until signing up. Other notes, I'm just going through to make sure. Again, the important part to note is it takes the hour and 20 to 25 minutes between the two tiers to be able to get there. Now, that does not include if there's traffic, weather, or other issues that in there that occur. So I wanted to give some of the reasons. Some of the people wanted me to provide information for some of the reasons. Again, I only got a handful of emails as I described in the two speakers tonight that spoke as well.
Dr. Thrill, I know that I'm not going to belabor this, and
Yep.
this can be for a different time. It's late, and
Yeah, it
and
is, yep.
we're all circling the drain at this point. But the one question I do have, and it's something maybe to chew on, but and I'm sure you've already thought about it. The elementary start times, and I'm thinking about this pragmatically as a teacher, not as a parent, not any of those things. With that early start time, those teachers are going to be required to do more instructional minutes each day than their counterparts in the secondary levels. That's going to be more instructional minutes over the course of the academic year, about 25 a day. That equates to about 6.5 additional weeks of instruction time placed on elementary teachers versus secondary. Have you considered that?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and it's about 6 hours and 40 minutes for the elementary time. It will be, that's right, high school will be 6 hours and 30 minutes. And the biggest one is actually going to be the middle school. There's an increase of 30 minutes, which will be 7 hours of instructional time at the middle school. Yes, I have considered that. And I also have considered looking at the data of how our students are progressing and needs. So there is going to be a change in instructional minutes, but actually the 6 hours and 30 and 40 minutes were very similar to the 9:30 start time.
Okay. I'm just thinking about the equity when it comes to, especially when it comes to, teaching and the as a union member myself in my respective district, that may not bode well.
And my concern with the equity issue is we should be instructing to ensure that the kids are performing the best that they can. And yes, there are some differences with that.
So I actually had a ton of emails about this. I had 37 emails completely opposing this, one in favor. I think it was the same one that you had. Some of the emails were from teachers. One of them was very concerned, understanding that there was prep time, but it was not going to be before school. That person was worried about that. Another teacher was very dismayed. There was not a staff or parent survey put out. A lot of the sentiment from community members was that, why are we the guinea pig? No one else around here is doing this.
Nobody in Butler County, but there are schools in Ohio.
Right, but
that do
none, or the surrounding counties.
Okay.
But, and honestly, I kind of have a fear that we put this out there, this fails, and a year from now, this is brought back to the board to vote on eliminating high school busing in the 1 mile radius to go back to a one-tier system again.
The board would have to make that decision if that was to come. If it wasn't working, we would adjust it after the year. I'm not looking at adjusting during the year because I understand the concerns with that. Absolutely.
And I know with banding that was a decision you could have made, that you gave the decision to the board. Is this a decision you would be willing to give to the board?
No, this is, you gave me the direction to do the two-tiered busing. Now, what I would like from you is all of those emails, because you haven't shared any of those emails with me that you have received. So I would like to see them because...
know that I was supposed to share emails from the
How else am I supposed to
public.
know the information if I'm not getting the information?
Well, they're sending it, they wrote it to me specifically.
I shared when I get my emails, I share them to you. So I'm asking you right now to share. You're laughing it off.
Things in there they might not want you to see.
So
I'm not going to forward emails without getting permission from people to do that. There are teachers might not want. They contacted me.
I am requesting it. It's
Someone
public record.
can just open record
Then-
request them.
Then find it through an open records request. That's
Okay.
fine. But
I would hope
I'm
the
not
board-
going to turn it over.
Okay. I would hope the board members could cooperate with the superintendent
Yeah, I
on
would
things,
hope
but I
so,
want to go
too.
back to the discussion. I do have a little bit of concern that teachers walking in have enough prep time before students walk in. I'm sure you thought of that.
Yeah.
But I have concerns about that. As a middle school teacher, I would have concerns that I was working a half hour longer than my high school counterparts. I love them all dearly. But middle school students, that's a long day with middle school students. Hopefully our new principal can help teachers keep them engaged that long, because getting them engaged more than 10 minutes in a row can be difficult. So I worry a little about that. And then with much of the community, I have somewhat of a concern about how early that start time is. I don't know if you've been noticing, I'm up here yawning trying to stay awake. But that's because I get up at 6:30 to get my 5-year-old on the bus. And if next year I'm getting up at 5:30 to get my 5-year-old on the bus, we better have earlier board meetings, because this can be very difficult. So I am a little concerned about how early it is, but I do understand some of the educational reasons for doing this are really sound. I'm a firm believer that the high school and middle school students should start later than the elementary school students. I do think it's advantageous for the elementary students to get in early enough that they can get particularly their language arts and math blocks in before lunch when they tire out. I think those educational things are very important. This year's current structure had both of those things.
Yes, it worked.
And we had some unhappy parents, so we changed it, and now we have some unhappy parents. Just amazing how that works. I would like the board to make decisions based on academic reasons and know that no matter what we do, we're going to have unhappy parents, and I feel for them because I'm getting up that early and worrying about things. It's perfectly understandable why we aren't going to make everyone happy. What can we do to make the best educational product to continue Talawanda being the top school in Butler County, despite what the state says? You know, we're the envy of other school districts. I talk to other school board members. They see what we're doing academically with our students, and we are doing an excellent job, which is why we need to keep and retain people and work on the administrator salary scale and do some other things. But going back, you know, if we would have made a different decision in December, people would have already made those adjustments. We would have the elementary schedule such, after we tweaked it, such that the academics were being done in the morning. That's advantageous. And the older students get to start late, and that was advantageous. Sometimes I think by trying to make people happy, we create more problems for ourselves. And so, I mean, I voted against bringing back the buses, and it wasn't because I don't like people and want them to drive everywhere. I think academically it was working. But those are my three concerns. Time before school for teachers,
Understand.
just how darn early this is, and the TMS teachers, if I'm a TMS teacher, I think, boy, I'm kind of paying extra here.
The
But
only
However,
Yeah,
I
no, I
cannot
appreciate
work
it.
out all those
Yep, I
details. I
appreciate
am
it.
not as detail-oriented as you are. I will trust that you have thought about those things and that, you know,
I appreciate
you're doing the best
Well,
you can.
and longitudinally, if you look at it from the levy to the tiered busing to the repeal of the tiered busing to now this, yeah, you know, like Pat said, you can't appease everybody. We're trying to do the best with what we can, and no matter what happens, something's got to give. And luckily, we have some rock star PBL, you know, science teachers that can do PM teaching here in the audience now. To keep the kids engaged even when they're circling the drain, you know, after lunch. But just the same, I mean, the young father who was talking about having 2.5 hours with their child after school, I mean, raise your hand if you're a parent and that's your norm. I mean, everybody kind of, and I'm not dismissing that. That's terrible for everyone, and it's a hard reality. But we, like Pat said, our product is education. We cannot continue to try to fix every single part of every single thing that has to do with our students' lives. We cannot. Because you're also a CEO of a multi-million-dollar business that has employees that you have to also negotiate their contracts with. There's too many plates spinning at one time.
It is.
So I can empathize with you on that one. So you do. This is your realm right here, and I'm not going to micromanage it too much. I just hope that, and I know that you do, you consider all of those things when you put them into perspective.
Thank you.
I'm going to chime in here. Again, thank you for the information. We are between a rock and a hard place trying to figure out these logistics. I'm certainly very aware of the concerns that parents have with this early start time. I would be concerned about that as well. I'm very concerned about the closeness of the elementary teachers to that arrival time of the kids. Again, that's why we made the adjustment in December, was to give them more of that.
They have it at the end, though. If you look at the schedule, you'll see.
Oh, I know they've got it at the end, but I think they were kind of saying at the beginning too. Again, this is what we hire you to do.
Yep.
I'm gonna ask you to just look at the logistics, consider maybe a compromise of moving it just a half an hour.
You can't.
But
You can't move it a half hour. If you move it a half hour, the problem's going to be for the high school and middle school end times, and then we're going to have a huge issue with any extracurriculars. And I mentioned we have between 900 and 1,000 students each year, fall, winter, spring, some do multiple sports. That's just doing the athletes and how many are they're doing. So that means those events, activities, and games have to be pushed back later, which then means we had this problem before that our kids are getting home at 11 and midnight, which was problematic. So I get the solution is what we have or going back to the 9:30 time. That's the solution for it, the two choices. And people don't understand you can't adjust it any other way. If we were a smaller school district, we could, because you wouldn't have the hour and 25 minutes in between.
And we wouldn't have
Smaller.
144 square miles to
Yeah,
cover.
if we were like the size of Ross, let's be honest, we wouldn't have to do that. Yeah,
All right, thank you.
I appreciate
all
it.
that information.
Okay, real quick for the information, kindergarten registration reminder, we need you to contact the elementary building, and if you don't know, you can contact any elementary building or the district office, and they'll tell you which building to register. That is very important to determine how many kindergarten teachers we need. And that's also very important because if you need to add to it, we want to get high-quality people, and we don't want to wait till August to do that because often you can't pull from other districts at that point in time. Open enrollment applications and interdistrict requests are now available on the website, and April the first Tuesday in April. I think it's April 2nd. We will start collecting them by email, drop off, however you need to. First come, first serve. We only accept if there's room. Bus transportation forms will need to be filled out. Since we are offering two-tiered, we will make all students and families sign up for bus service again. And that has to be done by June 7th. And then we will process that, develop groups, and do all of the enrollments and withdrawals. And you'll be notified probably a week to 2 weeks before school starts, as we always do. There is a new mandate called the Science of Reading. That's just important to know. It's an unfounded mandate. By June of next year, not this year, 2025, all teachers, administrators must be trained in the science of reading. The good news for us is Orton Gillingham counts as one of those requirements for it. Many of our staff members are trained in Orton Gillingham. If they're not, which we have some, including administrators, they are ODE or DO, is now developing pathways, and it will be at least 21 hours of professional development to be able to have this science of reading completed. And the pathways will tell you exactly what you're required to learn during that point in time, and the list isn't completed. We talked a long time ago about the grant that we got for the middle school, which is going to replace the interior door locks. We had some trouble with supply and chain. It was pushed back. We were hoping to get them installed at December break. Well, it didn't happen because they didn't come. We didn't have the time. However, they're in. And guess what next week is? Spring break. So we will have those new door. Hopefully we'll get all of them installed over spring break. Those are my informational items.
All right, are there any additional items from board members? No? All right, thank you. This was one of our longer meetings, and that's okay. We do the business we need to do as we need to do it. Future board events, our next regular meeting is April 11th. It's a little bit earlier in the month, so be aware of that. All right, do I have...
So moved.
Second. Second.
Discussion, conversation, or just call the vote?
I still have a couple things I'd like to.
My time
Stand down,
doing
Chris
this?
Otto.
Mr. Bothast,
Yes.
Mr. Mead,
Yes.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Otto.
Yes.
She's doing this as slowly as she
know.
possibly
Howard.
can. Yes.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.